Imagine a city. Not just any city, but the heart of the ancient world, Rome. At its peak, over 1 million people lived here, packed into towering apartment buildings and sprawling villas. This was a scale of urban living that would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years. And with so many people came an enormous, daily problem: water. How do you provide enough clean water for 1 million people to drink, to cook, to bathe, and to run their industries? Without water, this giant city would collapse into thirst, disease, and chaos in a matter of days. The Romans looked at this problem and did not see an obstacle. They saw an opportunity for a masterpiece of engineering. They understood that a great city needed a great water supply. Their solution was not just functional, it was a statement of their power over nature itself. They built aqueducts. We have all seen pictures of these magnificent stone bridges stretching across valleys, but that is only a small part of the story. Most of the aqueducts were actually underground tunnels, carved through hills and buried through plains to protect the water from pollution and enemies. They were built with a gentle, precise slope, a decline of only a few centimeters every 100 meters. This gravity-powered system was the city's lifeline. The water did not pump itself, it flowed, constantly and reliably, from clean mountain springs dozens of miles away, all the way to the city's heart. This constant flow of fresh water was the fundamental first step. It meant that for the first time in history, a large urban population did not have to rely on local wells or the dirty Tiber River. It meant that water was no longer a scarce resource to be hoarded, but a public utility to be enjoyed. This abundance of water set the stage for everything that was to come. It allowed Romans to think not just about survival, but about quality of life, about public health, and about grandeur. The aqueducts were the arteries of Rome, and the clean water they carried was the lifeblood that would power its famous baths, its fountains, and its revolutionary sewer system. The journey of this water, from the mountains to the city, is one of the greatest engineering achievements of the ancient world, and it all started with a simple, powerful idea: let gravity do the work. So, fresh, clean water has arrived at the edges of Rome via the magnificent aqueducts. But now comes the next big challenge: how do you get this water to the people? How do you distribute it to public fountains, to luxurious bathhouses, to the homes of the rich, and even to some apartment buildings? The Romans solved this problem with an invention so fundamental that we named the entire trade after them: plumbing, from the Latin word for lead, plumbum. The Romans crafted an intricate network of pipes throughout the city. The most common material for these pipes was lead. Now, we know today that lead is poisonous, and this is often pointed out as a fatal flaw in the Roman system. It is a complex topic, but the risk might have been lower than we think. The constant, fast flow of water through the pipes and the mineral deposits that quickly coated the inside meant that the water had less time to absorb the lead. Furthermore, the water source itself was hard water, rich in calcium, which also created a protective layer. While lead poisoning was certainly a risk, especially for those who work with the metal, the system was not as immediately toxic as one might imagine. This network of pipes was managed with incredible sophistication. At the main distribution tanks, called castella, the water was divided. Sluice gates and bronze stopcocks allowed engineers to control the flow, directing water to different parts of the city as needed. The primary goal was public access. Most ordinary Romans got their water from public fountains that ran constantly, day and night. This was a social hub and a daily necessity. For those who could afford it, a special tax could be paid to have a private pipe connection, bringing running water directly into their homes. This water would feed small fountains in their courtyards, and sometimes even private latrines. This was a level of convenience that was simply unheard of in the rest of the world. The Romans had effectively created the world's first comprehensive urban water grid, managing a precious resource with a bureaucracy and engineering precision that would not be matched for centuries. Now we have water flowing into the city and being distributed. But what happens after the water is used? In any large city, waste is a huge problem. If not managed properly, it leads to foul smells and devastating diseases like cholera and typhoid. The Romans had a brilliant, and surprisingly public, solution. Let us talk about the public latrines. A Roman public toilet was often a surprisingly beautiful place, built of marble with decorative statues. They were not private stalls, people sat next to each other on wooden benches with keyhole-shaped openings. It was a social experience. But the real genius was underneath. Beneath the seats, a constant stream of water flowed, provided by the aqueducts. This running water acted as a flush, immediately carrying the waste away into the city's main artery, the Cloaca Maxima, or the Great Sewer. The Cloaca Maxima began as an open channel to drain the local marshes, but the Romans gradually enclosed it and expanded it into a massive, covered stone sewer. It was so large that a cart, or even a boat, could reportedly travel through parts of it. This sewer system did not just carry waste from the latrines. It was also designed to collect overflow from the public baths and rainwater from the streets. All of this was channeled directly into the Tiber River, downstream from the city. The key, again, was the constant flow of water from the aqueducts, which kept the sewers from becoming clogged and helped to rinse them clean. This system effectively removed a massive amount of disease-causing waste from the densely populated city center. It was a monumental public health achievement. By creating this infrastructure, the Romans demonstrated a profound understanding of urban sanitation. They knew that to keep a city of 1 million people healthy, you had to actively and systematically remove waste, not just let it pile up in the streets. The Cloaca Maxima is so robust that parts of it are still in use today, carrying modern Rome's stormwater. With the basics of clean water in and dirty water out firmly solved, the Romans could use their plumbing system for something beyond mere necessity. They could use it to create a culture of luxury, cleanliness, and community. The ultimate expression of this was the Roman public bathhouse, or thermae. Places like the baths of Caracalla were not just places to get clean, they were monumental leisure centers for the entire population. They contained libraries, gardens, gymnasiums, and shops. But at their heart was the bathing ritual, which was made possible by an incredibly complex plumbing system. A bathhouse had a series of rooms with different temperatures: the cold room, frigidarium; the warm room, tepidarium; and the hot room, caldarium. Heating this massive complex was achieved through a system called a hypocaust. This involved raising the floor on pillars of brick, creating a space underneath. A furnace, constantly stoked by slaves, would heat the air in this space. The hot air would circulate under the floors and through hollow tubes built into the walls, turning the entire room into a giant radiator. But how did they get hot water? The aqueduct water was channeled into large lead tanks that were suspended directly over the furnaces. This heated the water, which was then piped directly into the hot pools of the caldarium. Meanwhile, the cold pools of the frigidarium were constantly refreshed with cold water from the aqueducts. This required a delicate balance of water pressure and temperature control that Roman engineers mastered. Beyond the baths, the sound of flowing water was everywhere in Rome. Hundreds of magnificent fountains, both large and small, decorated the city squares. These fountains, constantly fed by the aqueducts, provided drinking water for the people and cooled the air, while also serving as beautiful symbols of Rome's power and its ability to tame nature for the comfort of its citizens. For centuries, Rome thrived with this unparalleled water management system. It was a key factor in the health, stability, and grandeur of the empire. But as the Roman Empire began to decline and fall, so did its magnificent infrastructure. The aqueducts were deliberately cut by invading armies or fell into disrepair as the knowledge and resources to maintain them disappeared. The complex plumbing systems clogged and collapsed. The great baths fell silent and cold. With the loss of this system, Europe plunged into what we often call the Dark Ages. The understanding of public health and urban sanitation was lost for over 1,000 years. People returned to drawing water from wells that were often contaminated by nearby privies. Waste was thrown into the streets. The great cities of the medieval period were filthy, smelly, and disease-ridden places. Life expectancy dropped. It was not until the 19th century, during the Industrial Revolution, that major cities like London and Paris began to build sewer and water supply systems on a scale that could match, and eventually surpass, what ancient Rome had achieved. So, why does Roman plumbing still amaze us today? Because it was a holistic system. It was not just one aqueduct or one sewer, it was an interconnected network that considered the entire water cycle of a city: supply, distribution, usage, luxury, and waste removal. They built it to last, using concrete, stone, and lead with incredible craftsmanship. They built it with a deep understanding of physics, using gravity to power the entire flow. Most importantly, they built it as a public service, believing that such amenities were the right of their citizens and the duty of their state. The Roman plumbing system was not just a feat of engineering, it was a testament to a civilization that, for a glorious period in history, mastered the art of living together in a great city.